Hi, welcome back to our YouTube channel. Today we are in Namibia, Africa, in a community where people they don't bath with water, offer sex for visitors. Let's get started. Okujepasa Omukazandu T means, offering a wife to a guest, is the polyamorous sexual practice of hospitable wife sharing among the nomadic Himba and Ovazemba peoples of Namibia's Kunene and Amazati regions. According to the practice, a man welcomes a familiar male guest, typically a family member or best friend, and never a stranger or tourist, to his home by allowing the visitor to sleep in the man's bed and have sex with his wife for the night, while the man sleeps in another hut or outside. The woman has little agency in the arrangement. The opposite arrangement, whereby a woman chooses a female friend for her husband to have sex with, exists, but is rare. The practice has been described as generations old, centuries old, and ancient. The practice's justifications include belief that it deepens friendship and prevents promiscuity and jealousy in both sexes. Namibian feminists assert that Okujepasa Omukazandu is rape, and that women who resist participation or refuse to have sex with guests face repercussions, including ostracism, beating, and harassment. Rural women are identified as being particularly at risk of retaliatory violence. The practice has been identified as an aggravating factor in Namibia's HIV/AIDS crisis. In 2014, Kaziangir Tshendo, a Himba lawmaker in the Democratic Turhali Alliance (DTA), proposed legislation to enshrine Okujepasa Omukazandu in law. He argued that Okujepasa Omukazandu mitigates domestic violence, and claimed that women may decline to have sex with guests, but should be compelled to share a bed with guests. His proposal generated controversy from activists and legal experts, and the DTA distanced itself from Tshendo, calling Okujepasa Omukazandu wrong, and promising to take steps against the legislator. Tshendo responded that the media had misinterpreted him. Ringo Mutambo, a public relations officer in the office of the Prime Minister of Namibia, criticized what he perceived to be sensationalist Western media coverage for implying tourists receive free sex in Himba communities. He clarified that the practice of Okujepasa Omukazandu is restricted to community members, and defended its social functionality. The Himba are an ethnic group with an estimated population of about 50,000 people living in northern Namibia, in the Kunene region and on the other side of the Kunene River in southern Angola. There are also a few groups left of the Ova-Twa, who the Ova-Himba consider to be part of their tribe, but are hunter-gatherers. Culturally distinguishable from the Herero people, the Ova-Himba are a semi-nomadic, pastoralist people and speak Aji-Himba, a variety of Herero, which belongs to the Bantu family within Niger and Congo. The Ova-Himba are semi-nomadic as they have base homesteads where crops are cultivated, but may have to move within the year depending on rainfall and where there is access to water. The Ova-Himba are considered the last nomadic people of Namibia. The Ova-Himba are predominantly livestock farmers who breed fat-tailed sheep and goats, but count their wealth in the number of their cattle. They also grow and farm rain-fed crops such as maize and millet. Livestock are the major source of milk and meat for the Ova-Himba. Their main diet is sour milk and maize porridge, they call it, or hiromer, and sometimes plain hard porridge only, due to milk and meat scarcity. Their diet is also supplemented by cornmeal, chicken eggs, wild herbs and honey. Only occasionally, and opportunistically, are the livestock sold for cash. Non-farming businesses, wages and salaries, pensions, and other cash remittances make up a very small portion of the Ova-Himba livelihood, which is gained chiefly from their work in conservancies, old age pensions, and drought relief aid from the government of Namibia. Their daily life. Women and girls tend to perform more labor-intensive work than men and boys do, such as carrying water to the village, earthen plastering the mopane wood homes with a traditional mixture of red clay soil and cow manure binding agent, collecting firewood, attending to the calabash vines used for producing and ensuring a secure supply of soured milk, cooking and serving meals, as well as artisans making handicrafts, clothing and jewelry. The responsibility for milking the cows and goats also lies with the women and girls. Women and girls take care of the children, and one woman or girl will take care of another woman's children. The men's main tasks are tending to the livestock farming, herding where the men will often be away from the family home for extended periods, animal slaughtering, construction, and holding council with village tribal chiefs. Members of a single extended family typically dwell in a homestead, they call it Onanda, a small family village, consisting of a circular hamlet of huts and work shelters that surround an okuruo. Means, sacred ancestral fire, and a kraal for the sacred livestock. Both the fire and the livestock are closely tied to their veneration of the dead, the sacred fire representing ancestral protection and the sacred livestock allowing proper relations between human and ancestor. The Ovahimba use a heterogeneous pasture system that includes both rainy season pastures and dry season pastures. Dry season pastures are rested during the rainy season, which results in higher biomass production in the soil compared to constantly grazing all pastures. Both the Himba men and women are accustomed to wearing traditional clothing that befits their living environment in the Kayako land and the hot semi-arid climate of their area. In most occurrences, this consists simply of skirt-like clothing made from calfskins and sheepskin or, increasingly, from more modern textiles, and occasionally sandals for footwear. Women's sandals are made from cow's skin while men's are made from old car tires. Women who have given birth wear a small backpack of skin attached to their traditional outfit. Himba people, especially women, are famous for covering themselves with ajize paste, a cosmetic mixture of butterfat and ochre pigment. Ajize cleanses the skin over long periods due to water scarcity and protects from the hot and dry climate of the Kayako land, as well as from insect bites. It gives Himba people's skin and hair plates a distinctive texture, style, an orange or red tinge, and is often perfumed with the aromatic resin of the omazumba shrub. Ajize is considered foremost a highly desirable aesthetic beauty cosmetic, symbolizing Earth's rich red color and blood, the essence of life, and is consistent with the Ovahimba ideal of beauty. From pubescence, boys continue to have one braided plait, while girls will have many ajize-textured hair plates, some arranged to veil the girl's face. In daily practice, the plaits are often tied together and held parted back from the face. Women who have been married for about a year or have had a child wear an ornate headpiece called the arembe, sculptured from sheepskin, with many streams of braided hair colored and put in shape with ajize paste. Unmarried young men continue to wear one braided plait extending to the rear of the head, while married men wear a cap or head wrap and unbraided hair beneath. Widowed men will remove their cap or head wrap and expose unbraided hair. The Ovahimba are also accustomed to use wood ash for hair cleansing due to water scarcity. The Ovahimba are polygamous, with the average Himba man being husband to 2 wives at the same time. They also practice early arranged marriages. Young Himba girls are married to male partners chosen by their fathers. This happens from the onset of puberty, which may mean that girls aged 10 or below are married off. This practice is illegal in Namibia, and even some Ovahimba contest it, but it is nevertheless widespread. Genetic testing was used in a 2020 study of a semi-nomadic group near the Angolan border. It showed that 48% of all children were conceived by a father outside of the marriage, and that more than 70% of the couples had at least one child from an extra-pair father. Furthermore, parents of both sexes could, with a reliability of 72 and 73%, tell which ones of their children were fathered by a man outside of the marriage. Among the Himba people, it is customary as a rite of passage to circumcise boys before puberty. Upon marriage, a Himba boy is considered a man. A Himba girl is not considered a fully fledged woman until she bears a child. Marriage among the Ovahimba involves transactions of cattle, which are the source of their economy. Bride wealth is involved in these transactions. This can be negotiable between the groom's family and the bride's father, depending on the relative poverty of the families involved. In order for the bride's family to accept the bride wealth, the cattle must appear of high quality. It is standard practice to offer an ox, but more cattle will be offered if the groom's father is wealthy and is capable of offering more. The Ovahimba history is fraught with disasters, including severe droughts and guerrilla warfare, especially during Namibia's War of Independence and as a result of the civil war in neighboring Angola. In the 1980s it appeared the Ovahimba way of life was coming to a close due to a climax in adverse climatic conditions and political conflicts. A severe drought killed 90% of their livestock, and many gave up their herds and became refugees in the town of Apuo, living in slums on international humanitarian aid, or joined covert paramilitary units to cope with the livestock losses and widespread famine. Ovahimba living over the border in Angola were occasionally victims of kidnapping during the South African Border War, either taken as hostages or abducted to join the Angolan branch of the People's Liberation Army of Namibia. The Ovahimba are a monotheistic people who worship the god Mukuru, as well as their clan's ancestors, ancestor reverence. Mukuru only blesses, while the ancestors can bless and curse. Each family has its own sacred ancestral fire, which is kept by the firekeeper. The firekeeper approaches the sacred ancestral fire every 7 to 8 days in order to communicate with Mukuru and the ancestors on behalf of his family. Often, because Mukuru is busy in a distant realm, the ancestors act as Mukuru's representatives. The Ovahimba traditionally believe in Omidi, which some translate to mean witchcraft but which others call black magic, or bad medicine. Some Ovahimba believe that death is caused by Omidi, or rather, by someone using Omidi for malicious purposes. Additionally, some believe that evil people who use Omidi have the power to place bad thoughts into another's mind or cause extraordinary events to happen, such as when a common illness becomes life-threatening. But users of Omidi do not always attack their victim directly. Sometimes they target a relative or a loved one. Some Ovahimba will consult a traditional African diviner healer to reveal the reason behind an extraordinary event, or the source of the Omidi. The Ovahimba have been successful in maintaining their culture and traditional way of life. As such, the Ovahimba have worked with international activists to block a proposed hydroelectric dam along the Kunene River that would have flooded their ancestral lands. In 2011, when Namibia announced its new plan to build a dam in Orakal, in the Baines Mountains, the Ovahimba submitted in February 2012 their protest declaration against the hydroelectric dam to the United Nations, the African Union and to the government of Namibia. The governments of Norway and Iceland funded mobile schools for Himba children, but since Namibia took them over in 2010, they have been converted to permanent schools and are no longer mobile. The Himba leaders complain in their declaration about the culturally inappropriate school system, that they say would threaten their culture, identity and way of life as a people. Groups of the last remaining hunters and gatherers Ovatwa are held in secured camps in the northern part of Namibia's Kunene region, despite complaints by the traditional Himba chiefs that the Ovatwa are held there without their consent and against their wishes. In February 2012, traditional Himba chiefs issued 2 separate declarations to the African Union and to the OHCHR of the United Nations. The first, titled, Declaration of the Most Affected Ovahimba, Ovatwa, Ovajimba and Ovazemba against the Orakal Dam in the Baines Mountains, outlines the objections from regional Himba chiefs and communities that reside near the Kunene River. The second, titled, Declaration by the Traditional Himba Leaders of Kayako Land in Namibia, lists violations of civil, cultural, economic, environmental, social and political rights perpetrated by the government of Namibia. In September 2012, the United Nations Special Rapporteur on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples visited the Ovahimba and heard their concerns that they do not have recognized traditional authorities and that they are placed under the jurisdictions of chiefs of neighboring dominant tribes, who make decisions on behalf of the minority communities. In his view, the lack of recognition of traditional chiefs, in accordance with Namibian law, relates to a lack of recognition of the minority indigenous tribes' communal lands. On November 23, 2012, hundreds of Ovahimba and Zemba from Omahanga and Epipa region protested in Okangwadi against Namibia's plans to construct a dam in the Kunene River in the Baines Mountains, against increasing mining operations on their traditional land and human rights violations against them. On March 25, 2013, over 1,000 Himba people marched in protest again, this time in Apuo, against the ongoing human rights violations that they endure in Namibia. They expressed their frustration over the lack of recognition of their traditional chiefs as traditional authorities, by the government. Namibia's plans to build the Orakaw Dam in the Baines Mountains at the Kunene River without consulting with the Ovahimba, who do not consent to the construction plans. Culturally inappropriate education, the illegal fencing of parts of their traditional land, and their lack of property rights to the territory that they have lived upon for centuries. They also protested against the implementation of the Communal Land Reform Act of 2002. On October 14, 2013, Himba Chief Kapika, on behalf of his region Epipa and the community which was featured in German RTL reality TV show Wild Girls, condemned the misuse of Himba people, individuals and villagers in the show, and demanded the halt of broadcasting any further episodes as they would mock the culture and way of being of the Himba people. In March 2014, Ovahimba from both countries, Angola and Namibia, marched again in protest against the dam's construction plans and against the government attempt to bribe their regional Himba chief. In the signed letter of the Himba community from Epipa, the region that would be directly affected by the dam, the traditional leaders explained that any consent form signed by a former chief as a result of bribery was not valid, as they remain opposed to the dam. Let's end here. If there is something you don't understand about Himba tribe, let us know in the comment. We will post it in our next episode. Thanks for watching.